I mean, I've always been interested in nature.
Kind of Mother Nature's perfect animal,
Seeing Nile crocodiles and being kind of terrified.
Welcome to the Nature Talks podcast. Welcome to another episode of Nature Talks, where we explore the wonders of our planet, the urgent challenges it faces, and the inspiring people taking action to protect it. I'm your host, Erfan Firouzi, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by someone who's leading the change, of course, in youth-led conservation and climate activism. Our guest, of course, is Zach Schmitt, a passionate advocate for wildlife conservation, sustainability and youth empowerment, and so much more things, focusing on climate justice, conservation, and the environmental education. Today we'll be discussing, the journey, the interactions, of course, of social justice and conservation, how young people can step up to protect endangered species and the planet. Zach, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Erfan. I'm so glad to be on the podcast today, and I'm doing great today. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm really excited and looking forward to our conversation.
That's amazing. So let's start with your story. I know me and you are the same age. And every activist, has a moment when they realize their passion for the environment. So for you, what sparked your journey into climate and wildlife activism? Was there perhaps, let's say, a defining moment or experience that set you on this path?
That's a great question. Well, I like to joke to myself that I was first inspired to advocate for the environment just when I was like a little toddler, because I always would spend time outside. I'd love to be outside ever since I was a really young child. I would spend hours just playing outside or even just sitting and observing things. I loved to watch butterflies and bumblebees in my backyard when I was a kid. And so I always felt very deeply connected to the natural world. I always felt like a part of it was in me and I was a part of it. So I always felt like, my entire life I would be doing things to help the environment. I always considered things in nature, animals, and even plants to be kind of like my friends growing up. So I always just felt very deeply connected. And I think when I was growing up, I just saw the world, the state of it. I first learned about climate change at a very young age, and it was it upset me a lot because I felt like I didn't know what I could do. I just knew that these things, nature, it was like my friend, and I didn't know how I could help it. So I was just very inspired to do what I could to protect it in any capacity I had. And I knew from a very young age that I wanted to have a big impact in the world to help save the planet, essentially, and do my part in mobilizing people to really protect it in any way they could.
That's amazing indeed. I mean, many young activists struggle to find their path and place in the environmental movement. So what was basically the first step into advocacy, and what advice would you give for someone just starting out, for example?
Yeah, well, starting off in advocacy, I like to say my actual advocacy journey started a little later in life, but my actual passion for the environment was always there. I just was finding the right steps to become an activist. From a really young age, I would interact with my local community in different ways. I was always passionate about animals, especially birds. And so when I was I think 9 years old, I got involved in the local environmental movement. I went to my local state park and I helped assist on nature walks with the local naturalists, which was always really fun. I loved doing that. It was a great learning opportunity. Got to teach visitors. It was fun to me. And yeah, after I gained experience teaching the public about things and even working with other young people, which I've always loved doing, I decided that I wanted to become more like an actual activist. I wanted to actually engage in my community and teach more people of different age groups about protecting the environment, protecting the earth. It was originally my idea to just be a scientist, but when I was, a few years ago, I realized that will come after I go to school, but I really need to be an activist now, because I feel like anyone can be an activist if they just put their heart and their goals, together to really make change. So more recently, I'd say I really started just by engaging in my community and basically using my skills in like working with young people, teaching people, putting on programs. I love to organize programs to engage with different age groups and teach about climate science and climate justice. And those opportunities have really helped shape my own like leadership journey, my own interactions with my community. It's really helped me get a better impression of what people are going through and what they need too, which is really important as an activist, because we need to know those things in order to target certain campaigns and certain qualities we need to tell people about. So those were the defining moments for me.
Of course, that's amazing. I mean, we can feel the passion in your talk as well. One thing that I personally find fascinating is how all these conservation, climate activism, and social justice are deeply connected. Whether it's, let's say, from indigenous land rights to environmental racism, I mean, these issues often overlap. In your experience, why is it important to address conservation through a social justice lens?
Yes, I think that just in being a human, it's really important to think about our impact on the earth. Even if we don't realize that we have an impact, we always do. And I think that part of addressing that impact is also, it's really important to address how we treat each other, how we treat the earth, and how we treat each other, because we're all the same. We're all, we're one species living together. We're also living with other species, and we have to think about how we treat each other, all species, which includes other people, because we can't, the way we treat others really doesn't differ that much regardless of what they might be. I think it's really important that we consider all of it. So social justice is huge when it's linked to conservation and even climate justice, because, we, in order to be activists and in order to be truly heading in the right direction, even just as human society, we need to look at how we can actually help each other and how we can actually reach our goals that we want to, right? Live on this earth, have a clean earth, have a healthy community to live in. But in order to do that, we must address inequality. We must address lingering issues, even like colonialism and racism, that really have had a major impact on our own ability to actually move forward and work with each other to achieve our goals. If we can't work with each other, I think there's no way we can really truly effectively even help the environment and help push for any kind of campaigns or legislation that really can truly affect society and lead us in the right direction. So I think that social justice is inherently linked to environmental campaigns, and I'm really glad that in more recent years we've kind of linked them together. We're really pushing for more inclusion of social justice as being a major component of the environmental movement.
I mean, it is true what you say. I do agree, because we are out of balance with nature, we're out of balance with our planet, we're out of balance with each other. We don't have the connection that we can have to do great things, to save the planet, to end poverty, or to end certain issues that are for humanity. I mean, when we look at it, we are even behind the animals we care least about. Like, our society is being run like, let's say that of an ant or that of a bee, that of a bee, if you look at it. We are not very cooperative with each other either, it's that's what. So I think we have to get a bit of inspiration from nature, from ants and so on. And talking about, wildlife and environment, we are in the middle of the 6th mass extinction, and species are disappearing at an alarming rate all over the world. I don't know if you saw the news recently. Butterflies seem to be declining over the past couple of years in the US.
Yeah, I see that.
And I know the same is happening in the UK. So what are some of the biggest threats facing endangered species in your point of view today?
Yeah, well, there are many things impacting endangered species. The thing is that it's sometimes hard to think of what they are specifically, because they are almost always caused by some human impact. And when you look at human impact, it's so nuanced and so detailed, sometimes hard to even pinpoint. So there are so many different ways that we, like, unintentionally often have an impact that negatively will affect the Earth and endangered species. But I would say that the biggest ones right now are habitat loss, because even in the midst of global climate change at the moment, which has been very much an atrocity over the last few years, we all sometimes forget just how habitat loss, especially with deforestation, is still occurring at an alarming rate across the world, especially in vital ecosystems, habitats like the Amazon rainforest, and also in boreal forest ecosystems all over the world. So these things are major issues because endangered species, they're often endangered as a result of being very specialized. You probably heard of there are species that are more generalists who can adapt to a wide variety of habitats, and also can adapt to human impact and human coexistence. And there are species that are more specialists that require specialized habitats that often aren't suitable with human impact, human intrusion. So often deforestation, habitat loss is so degrading to these endangered species because they need that in order to survive. They can't have human coexistence often, let alone actual destruction of their habitat, because there's no place they can go if that happens. So habitat loss is a major problem. Of course, there's climate change. Climate change is also a big issue, and that's still occurring at a very rapid rate. Climate change, especially in my country, the US, impacts a lot of migrating birds, because when temperatures change, weather patterns change, and migrating birds often rely on weather patterns to function, to migrate, and to eventually breed. And when those patterns are messed up, when they arrive in a certain place and say their food is not available yet, or it's been cleared or something like that, that is very, very harmful to their functioning as a species and as a group. So those things are very challenging, and I think really should be addressed consistently by conservationists and the general public alike.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. It's absolutely true, because the amount of problems we are throwing at nature is just too much. Whether it's poaching, habitat loss, as you mentioned, climate change, pollution, you name it. Everything which we are doing is harming nature. And but on the other side of the coin, what's very unique is that many people want to help endangered species, but don't know where to start. Personally, what do you think about veganism? Is it a solid, hit-on problem to addressing, let's say, habitat loss? Because a key aspect of habitat loss is because of farming. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, it's also a good question. Well, I think that, I personally speak as a vegan because of, several different reasons. As we're talking specifically about, impacts of animal agriculture on the climate, I think that worldwide that's a major issue, that it, animal agriculture specifically caters to the supply and demand market, and also public demand for products often too. And just like any kind of factory farming and unsustainable agriculture, often it is harmful in many ways. Again, like that, it's like that nuance, that details I'm talking about, where there's many different effects of it. It will cause greenhouse gases, and increase the greenhouse gases. It also requires so much clearing of land, because animals require a lot more space than, say, plants do. And so when that extra space is needed and desired, that is often, resulting in destruction of habitat that, is often really needed and important for species that are endangered. So there are so many negative effects of it, of animal agriculture. I would encourage anyone, just because it takes a long time to transition to more sustainable practices, and it's completely fine, because it can take a long time to change, especially as a global society. But I would definitely encourage people to start just at least considering that as a serious issue in everyday life. Because once we start continually thinking of these things, reminding ourselves that every day we might be choosing practices that are really harmful for the environment and that we might not even realize, then I think that we can start to like really understand what that impact is. And we'll realize that since we don't really want to have a negative impact, then we can start to understand the better choices we can make. And I think that veganism is a great avenue to reach that goal. And I think that if more people saw that, you know, it's not too difficult of a transition if it can be done with patience, and also with a lot of just, well, patience not just in the process, but patience in ourselves, that, you know, that change can take a little while. But it's ultimately really good for the earth. And I think that if we truly want to make that change, we need to actually commit to it, and not just, you know, make half commitments that aren't going to be truly effective. So I would say that it's a very helpful step in the right direction, and I would encourage people to start considering that in everyday life and make their own choices in the process. It's everyone's own personal choice, but to at least consider it and know the effects of their everyday actions.
Yes, I do completely agree, because what's amazing here is all the solutions I'm getting from your side ultimately is reaching to addressing what threatens biodiversity loss, and I mean, yeah, veganism is a huge step. And when people get mentioned about veganism, they think of a completely plant-based diet, no nutrients. Where am I going to get my iron from and whatnot? All those are there in plants. They have been amazingly working to make plants completely look and taste like your meat. I mean, a few days back I was at this campaign where this person handed me a vegan cat food. Cats eat meat. That's very unique. When I saw, my goodness, vegan cat food, that was unique. And the transition is very important because the amount of food wasted. So of course we have to address food waste first, then our diets is just absurd at the point, because we're having over 96% of the mass of mammals right now on our planet, us and the livestock that we have domesticated. I mean, when you look at it, there was, I think, a statistics of saying that there are 4 times more cows than humans on Earth, which is crazy. And same goes for birds. 70% of all birds are now domesticated, mainly chickens. So we are replacing wildlife with the tame, and that can completely mess up with our ecosystems and worsen the impacts of climate change. And I know, Zach, you have been involved with amazing organizations, Peter is one of them, that focus on grassroots activism. So what are some of the most effective strategies for mobilizing young people to take action on, conservation and climate issues?
Yeah, I think to mobilize young people, especially today, it's really important to look at what they already know, what their lived experiences have been, and what opportunities they would want in order to fully take leadership positions and to lead their communities towards positive change. In my experiences working with young people like my age, but also even younger, younger children, they're learning about climate change at a younger age. I mean, with each generation, they're learning more about the effects of climate change in the world, and also especially about the human responsibility for climate change, what humans have done, and also what humans can do to make the earth better and to also improve our systems in the right direction. So I think that it's really important to look at what skills young people have already, because everyone approaches their leadership and activism differently, and just their lives differently. Everyone has something unique to offer. So I think looking at young people's skills is very important. I think looking at their lived experiences and kind of honoring what they've gone through. A lot of young people, including myself, have experienced lots of climate-related disasters and just really harmful effects of climate change that they know from their own personal experience, and they can attest to if they were to discuss it with people in leadership positions. So I think looking at those lived experiences, honoring them, and showing young people, especially as an older person or an adult or a person of a different generation, that you actually care. Like, you actually are committed to caring and bettering human society for the earth and for all people. Because, like, we often see people make half promises. They aren't really committed to making change, especially those who are in the most important positions of power globally. And when young people, they want change often, and when they feel like they aren't being listened to, they might feel powerless, or that they can't even work in an intergenerational setting. So I think working with many different generations is important, because older people, besides the youth, are often in those leadership positions already, and they're impacting young people the most, because young people, are going to be living, seeing more into the future than anyone else, and will experience the effects of our actions in the present more than anyone else. So, looking at those skills and leadership opportunities in young people, bringing them to them, and letting them take creative control of their own pathway. I know we're Generation Z. I think we're a very collaborative generation. We're not competitive. We're supportive of each other. I feel like we understand the struggles we've been through. We have mutual respect, and we can really work in the right direction together if we feel honored, respected, and empowered to do the right thing. So I think those are some great first steps for mobilizing young people. And also, starting campaigns and group projects is really good. Something exciting that people can get behind is always a good thing, and I know that from personal experience. So I would definitely recommend those steps as well.
Of course, what you're saying is really, those basic grassroots actions that anyone can take if they want. And yeah, talking about campaigns and group projects, those are very important, because if you don't collaborate with people across the world, it can be more difficult standing alone. If you're all together, we have got a more powerful symphony, as we call it. And talking about that, of course, citizen science is, of course, one of the key aspects in documenting, biodiversity data and whatnot. So I know that talking about, all these, you're passionate about, conservation biology and climate science. So what excites you the most about these fields, and how do you see them shaping the future of conservation?
Well, one of the reasons why I really like conservation biology, especially, and climate science, is that it studies the current world we're living in, and it also shows kind of how we have an impact on it. We have an impact on our own ecosystems. We have an impact on the world that we've developed, the built world. And we also have an impact on everything in the environment that causes us to see the effects of those actions, which is the embodiment of climate change, right? So when we study those things, we're kind of looking at what we've done to those systems, but we're also seeing what we can do to improve them. So what I really enjoy about it is that it gives people opportunities. It gives myself an opportunity to really have an in-depth understanding of how to actually change the way we think, change the actions we take, and to truly understand our world better. Kind of like it's like if you haven't seen an old friend in a long time and you meet them again, and you're like, "How's life been? Let's catch up." It's kind of like that with the Earth. We often do so many things that are negatively impacting the Earth. We don't realize that it's still a living, breathing entity. It takes in everything we give it, even if it's bad. And what we need to do instead is we need to always be understanding it, studying it, and protecting it based on what we know about it. Because just like with a friend, you need to stay updated on their lives. You need to respect them and their process, and you need to always be pitching in to help them when they need assistance. So I always think that's a good way of looking at the Earth. I think that it's exciting because we have an opportunity to change it. We have an opportunity to work with our friend, the Earth, to collaborate and to actually make change. Because conservation and climate, they're all linked because they're all about the actual lived experience of everything, us as a human species and all other species as well. And it's not as abstracted as other studies, which are important. It's all about the actual lived experiences and actually making change directly with what we can touch and feel, with what we can observe, with what we can feel in the air around us. It's all there in front of us, and we have so many opportunities to really improve and give back to that life system. So yeah, I think the other thing you said was about shaping the future, and I think that, as we have a better understanding now of the ethics involved with studying the environment, because you've probably heard many stories, as I have, about how science has been very unethical in the past. There were many really many nights when I would be reading my biology textbooks and reading about all these past case studies. I'm like, why did scientists do this? This is so bad. Why do they do these things to the Earth? But we've improved a lot in our thinking over generations. And we now understand that it's not just about studying things in the environment and, just taking that knowledge just for the sake of understanding what we're living with. It's also about treating those things with respect and actually helping them still exist so we can coexist with them together. And so now that we have a better understanding of ethics and even the ecological processes of life, where ecology, which is not just the living things, but it's the water, the air, the minerals, and kind of the human impacts too, are all considered in what we do. And when those things are considered, we have a much better understanding of the world around us and actually improving it and helping it, so it's not about taking, but about giving back ultimately.
True. I do very much agree with you, and the way you depicted Earth was absolutely amazing. I love that. I think that's the highlight of the podcast. The way you broke it down to one as a friend, and that makes me shoot out to all the people listening to this. This weekend, whenever you get time, go out, leave your gadgets away. I think that's what most of our environmentalists do, and just sit and become one with nature. Close your eyes, listen to the noises around you, the noises of birds, the noise of insects, and the different smells due to different plants. Of course, then you realize, okay, in the midst of all those noises, there are things such as, car noises disturbing that beautiful peace. There are smells of smoke or pollutants that also disturb this, balance. So make sure to do that, become one with nature. The first step to becoming an environmentalist is, first of all, connecting with nature. You not just go out there and be like, oh, I'm an environmentalist. The thing is, you have to be connected with nature, and you have to be connected in a way that, let's say, you are the voice of the indigenous community, right? And you work alongside with them because they are amazing people who have been there on that particular land for a long time. So before we wrap up, of course, Zach, one of our key parts of the podcast, many people like it, is the call to action. So if you could send one powerful message or advice to young people around the world about conservation and climate action, what would it be?
Wow, well, there are many messages I could say, but I think the most important one that really speaks to my generation is the fact that since we're very young, every single policy decision, every single action taken, everything that's being done in the present day will affect us the most because we're the youngest people in the world right now, and we'll live farthest into the future to feel and see and live the effects of all these decisions. And that can be both a daunting thought, especially with the state of the world, but it also can be an inspiring thought that really helps us see that what we're experiencing right now, every single detail in it's all affecting us. And so every single one of our lived experiences, everything we think of, everything we're passionate about, everything we know, it all is automatically relevant in any of the work that we do, because we're being so impacted by the world, and that might make us feel like we're powerless. It might make us feel like there's nothing we can do when it's the daunting challenge that we face. But there also are so many things that we're learning throughout this process. We're very understanding of the effects of climate change, our responsibility to improve the earth, and also the inclusion of all kinds of people in taking action collectively. So all of those things are all innately relevant to us. Everything we're passionate about is automatically really important and crucial in our development, because everything we know will impact the future. Everything we do will impact the future. And that future we're heading towards, it's going to have us in it, and we're going to be leading the way towards something better. So if you ever feel hopeless, if you ever feel like there's nothing you can do to help, or you feel powerless, just know that you aren't. And it's okay to feel those things, because we often all do. I do myself. But we will be living in a future that we create. And so everything we do, everything we're aware of, it's all relevant, and let's use it for the benefit of everyone, for the benefit of the world, for the benefit of all people, so we can head towards that future together. And that's what I would say to people of my generation and younger, and actually all generations, because we all have something really great to offer. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing. It was such, an insightful conversation we had together, and I know that there is so much room for collaborating later in many different aspects. But for now, this is the end of this episode at least. Thank you all for, thank you first of all, Zach, for sharing your journey, your passion, and your wisdom with us today. Before we go, of course, just wanted to tell all the listeners, you will be able to, access Zach's amazing work through the links down in the description. I hope you, go and check them out, see how you all can take part in his work. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Nature Talks podcast. If you enjoyed this, conversation, make sure to subscribe, of course, share, and leave a review. It helps us reach more people who care about protecting our planet. And until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep fighting for nature. Thank you.
I mean, I've always been interested in nature.
Kind of Mother Nature's perfect animal,
Seeing Nile crocodiles and being kind of terrified.
Welcome to the Nature Talks podcast.